Hello, this is Legal Aspects of Teacher Evaluation. This is my Module 8. To go ahead and start after reading the articles and kind of reflecting on my own teaching and the different processes within the teacher evaluation, the takeaways I had were more about understanding the evaluation process and the hows and whys of what goes on, not only just like with and between the administrator and the teacher and like their post conferences, but also about the various concepts of it and what why being thorough with it and allowing the better understanding can kind of help with that whole process. I also learned how teachers and the administrators need to have that fair understanding. They need to know what's going on with the evaluation so that everyone is treated the same. So that when one person's evaluated and observed, it's fair game for everyone else in the school. That's also being treated equal. The Every Student Succeeds. This is more about test scores and how that should not drive what teacher success is measured on. The state kind of picks the scales that the teachers are evaluated on. This is kind of shying away from that, is allowing for schools and districts to kind of redesign the whole evaluation process, where they're straying away from student achievement and more about teaching methods and goals for teachers and how to better their own methods and teaching styles. With this next one, this is the Heads to Court. This is, again, about the teacher evaluation. So another takeaway that I kind of had from this one was about the district evaluation system with setting goals. I know that my own district, actually my own school, I'm not sure if this is a wide, where everyone practices this within the schools in the district, but our administrator makes sure that we use that McCrell as our evaluation system, and we have to enter our own yearly goals every year for ourselves. As a grade level, we have to have a goal, and then as our own individual teacher, we have to have a goal. So this is something that I know a lot of us, we set our goal, and then if you're being evaluated that year, you kind of track your goal because of the pre-observation form that we fill out. It asks about how are you meeting your goal? How is this lesson helping with your goal? I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that, do these goals help follow the guidelines? Is it something that when you're not evaluated, are you referencing throughout the year? I think my takeaway would be is, if I was an administrator, setting goals is important because you have something to work towards and you can kind of reflect on, did this work? Did I achieve what I was hoping to achieve with my students and my own teaching styles? Or what other things can I try for the next year? So I think goal tracking can be important if you're using it effectively. With this next slide, teacher evaluation, this is that issue overview. One of the takeaways I had was that no matter how we try to rework, revamp, redesign the evaluation process, there will always be flaws in the system. It's kind of like you're never going to be able to please everyone. With the evaluation process, there are still some things that you can think you have it all lined out, but when in a career field like what we are in as educators, you're working with so many different people, so many teachers, so many students, so many families, that it's just, you're not going to please everyone. So there will still be flaws in the system. The goal is to focus on those teaching methods. Once again, kind of going back to the previous slide, we're not focusing on student achievement, or we should be shying away from that and be kind of going more towards teacher success and teaching styles. What benefits our students? How can we as educators make the best out of a situation with the evaluation process? So I think it's important for a school as a whole to kind of have, maybe at the beginning of the year where you have additional PD days, where you could take just some time out of your day to talk about the different protocols for the evaluation process, what's necessary, what are we expecting to see. That way every teacher, again, going back to the previous slide, every teacher's treated fairly. There's not any kind of discrimination between one grade level, one teacher versus another teacher. Everything should be lined out where staff knows the expectations, the administrators know the expectations, and this can kind of help kind of weed out the flaws in the system. There will always be something, but at least when you have a meeting with the whole staff to make sure everyone's on the same page, that can kind of eliminate some of the issues that can arise. our own teacher evaluation process at my school, Lincoln Elementary School, our administrator conducts evaluations um, every 3 years, I believe. If it's your every 3 years if you've been in the district. If you are a new hire for your first 3 years, you'll be evaluated. The process works in kind of semesters. So you'll be evaluated 6 times within a year, 3 in the first semester and 3 in the second semester. How that works, the beginning in the fall, you will have, our administrator emails you to try and set up a time. You fill out a pre-observation form. You have a pre-observation meeting to kind of let him know if there's any circumstances that he needs to be aware of. If you're going to kind of try and brainstorm, a lot of the times he's just there to listen. Like if you have a particular student that you're worried about, he can kind of say, well, maybe try this for this particular lesson, see what works. You're just kind of figuring out maybe issues that could arise and just making him aware of what's going to happen in the lesson, kind of giving an overview. And then we have the actual observation. After you fill out the pre-observation form, he comes in, he uses McCrell. That's what our district uses for evaluations. And he's taking notes the whole time, paying attention to the lesson. These notes are for him to help fill out the observation form in addition to conversation points for our post meeting. So that's that next step. After the evaluation, we try and meet within the next day to discuss that post conference, what we noticed, what could we do better. He always asks, how overall did you think the lesson went? What would you change? What would you do again? After he conducts this observation 3 times, he evaluates you, and he has an overall evaluation for that first 3 observations. So we do a goal setting worksheet, and there's that reflection piece. The teacher gets to kind of finally go over everything that the administrator puts together. And then once you have seen his notes, you can submit it. You can submit with notes and concerns for him, or you can kind of submit without, and you're good to go. Once we do this again in the spring, we are done with that observation for that year, and then we repeat the process. Next year will be my 3rd year, so I will be evaluated 6 times, 3 in the fall and 3 in the spring, and then I will be done until another 3 years if I'm still in that same district. So it just kind of recycles through all the staff. So every year he has multiple people. All right, so different resources for that teacher evaluation process. I actually found this pretty interesting just because the observations that I've done, I've never really dug deeper into. So this was interesting to find out if you wanted to learn more, if you had conversation points or questions to ask your admin. So the resources that are available can be the evaluation comments. You can also use like teacher unions to kind of reflect and gather insight and opinions from other people. And then honestly, I think communication with your administrators and your teachers within a school and within the district can just be eye-opening in itself. I think using them as a resource is a great advantage. One of the lawsuit cases that I found, I think it was interesting just because this is close to home. I found Janice Turner versus the Kansas City Public Schools. So a quick synopsis of this. Janice Turner was a secretary within the Kansas City Public Schools district. I think there were issues with various things where she may have showed up late once or twice to work. Just truly, they seemed like very minor concerns, something that could have been addressed rather easily, but they just kind of let slide. So the secretary experienced these issues in like 2011, 2012, and she wanted to file for age discrimination. So after she kind of talked with the administrators of the school to kind of figure out things and work it out, they decided, I think the assistant principal decided to transfer her to a different school to kind of, all right, we've heard your grievances. We're going to just try and avoid all of this. We'll send you to a new school and see how it goes. I believe after that time, things still did not work out very well. So once again, she filed that age discrimination against the Kansas City Public Schools. She was terminated for several reasons with the school. The reason I picked this case was more because after this whole presentation of teacher evaluations, this lawsuit seemed like it could have been 100% prevented if there would have just been some kind of observation or some kind of evaluation tool for this Janice Turner, just to see, it's always nice to have a performance review, even if you're a secretary or a lunch lady. It's nice to have that meeting with the administrator, with your boss, essentially, just to make sure everything's on track. If things are not on track, I strongly believe it's the administrator's role to contact whoever needs to be contacted and make them aware of what needs to change. So, for instance, if she did show up late to work, the administrator should have taken it upon himself to say, hey, I know this has happened once or twice. We really can't make a habit of it. And with that post-observation, a pre-observation, any kind of performance review, I think this entire lawsuit could have been avoided. So the next question is how I ensure I'm following the legal issues regarding that evaluation process. I strongly believe staying current on all things evaluation and observation would be helpful. Knowing the evaluation process, what to expect. Honestly, knowing people's expectations ahead of time can be a game changer. You can avoid conflicts and issues with people if you just know, what are you expecting first off, and then how can I meet that expectation? What would you like for me to do? Continuing communication. As an educator, I think communication is key. I don't think there is such a thing as too much communication. Communicating with parents, communicating with your administrator, communicating with other staff members and students will always make things easier. So that communication with goals and evaluations, and once again, those expectations can kind of help that observation process and hopefully have successful evaluations. And then as teachers, I think always acting ethically. If you have to ask yourself, is this really something I should do? Then it's probably not. So acting on your morals and making sure you're making the right decision. That concludes my Module 8. Thank you for watching.